Awaken to your truth that you are the I Am presence in harmony with the divine. You are consciousness beyond what the body and mind identify. Your hosts Lynda Hope and Sharon Berkowitz will remind and enlighten you to know your divine nature. You were born into the body already aware, but forgot it as you expanded your sense of identity, ego mind, pattern behaviors, and habits. Stop sleepwalking and wake up to your timeless, eternal, formless self. Now, here are your hosts of Moment to Moment, Lynda Hope and Sharon Berkowitz.
Good evening. Aloha. Namaste. How are you? So happy you all joined us. Yeah. Sharon, thank you for joining from Hawaii. Always great to be with you. Yeah.
Great to be with you too, Hope.
Thank you. And we're very excited to talk about this topic because we're both, children of mothers. We've had mothers in our life. We have been experiencing motherhood in our life. We know what that is to be a mother from an unconscious and conscious perspective. Don't we?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, and it's an ongoing process. We're always discovering and learning more about ourselves, as we change roles, as we grow, we're also learning from each other.
Absolutely. And we learn, obviously, as young children growing up, and I'd love us to share our upbringing. Some of the things that sort of stick out in our minds about our parents. I know my mother has been gone for 22 years, but I still, I still feel her presence. I still know that she's with me in spirit. And I just do remember her being a wonderful mother, very creative mother, very loving and nurturing mother, but also a woman that was spiritual as well. And we didn't really talk about God, but we shared the feeling of creativity together, which our view of creativity is God. It is that feeling of the divine flowing through us in that moment. Do you have some memories you want to share about your mom?
Oh, sure. Absolutely. So, my mom passed 2 years ago. But I'm so incredibly thankful to my mom, and just bless her heart, for all that she did and went through with raising 3 children and my dad. And, my dad is 92 right now.
Oh.
And I know he misses her a lot, But what I remember about growing up with my mom, she was the Girl Scout cookie chairman. She took on responsibilities. She was an RN, a registered nurse. And I remember her coming to the fairs at school and being at the nurse's station, and she would help anyone that had fallen, hurt their knee or whatever, something like that. She always enjoyed, helping out and being part of our lives, and I remember her always being at home when I would come home from school. But that only lasted to about 7th grade. And then she decided to go back to work part-time and become a nurse.
Oh,
yeah.
Cool.
And she figured we can all fend for ourselves. And actually when I got into high school, she was kind enough to allow me to drive with her to her work so that I could use the car and drive to school. But then I'd have to go pick her up later. But it was cool to be able to drive to high school.
Oh, that was cool. Yeah, sounds like a cool mom.
And the one thing I remember too is that, we would listen to Larry Lujak in the morning, animal stories, and we would just laugh. We would just have a good time and talk with each other. Those were really great memories, good family memories too. We used to take family vacations in the car. We all fit in the back seat of a Chevy Nova, the three of us. Now I don't think we could barely even fit. You know?
Right.
I'm being silly, but yeah.
Uh-huh. Yes,
But it
yes.
was fun, and so we had a lot of family time like that. And yeah, so it was quite well. So you remember the good things, you don't, and those are the things that really stand out for me.
Oh, that's wonderful. Yeah, as you were talking, my memory was sort of being activated. And one thing that my mom, she shared, her art was very, very important to her. And she was an artist. And so the reason I'm an artist is because my mom showed me that it was fun to be an artist. It was also a struggle for her to be an artist too, because she would be her worst enemy. She would criticize herself so badly. She would judge herself, and she would look at me and say, you have such a creative mind. I wish I could be as creative as you are. She sort of put herself down, but in a way to build me up. And I would say, no, Mom, you are amazing. You're an amazing artist. We would really lift each other up. But that feeling of courage and creativity was something that always seemed to be in my life. How can we be courageous enough to express ourselves and put ourselves out there? And that was sort of a theme that ran through my life because of my mom. But she did. She even up to the time she got ill and she couldn't paint anymore, she was determined to learn, to expand her painting skills and do something totally different on the canvas than she'd ever done before. And I think that took a lot of bravery at her age and being ill with cancer to still create and to push through that and to express herself.
Mm-hmm.
But she was also very sweet in that she would sit on the side of my bed. I'd come home from school and she'd look at me and she'd say, okay, what's wrong? Tell me what's wrong. What's going on? And she knew exactly when I wasn't feeling good. She could just look at my face and say, what's going on? You don't look like you feel good. And I always loved that about her. I couldn't put anything past her. She just knew me so well. And
that's great. That's really so wonderful that
she was that way.
She was intuitive with you.
She's but the thing is, what stood out with my mom is because my brother would always get into accident or something would happen. He would hurt himself. So one day he was pulling on the curtain rod. This was when we were much younger, and he swung from one bed to the next, and the curtain rod broke, and he fell, and his arm fell behind him, and he broke his arm. And my mom comes in. And the way she handled it, she did not get hysterical. She just calmly, picked up my brother, held him, told my father what to do, said, let's go to the hospital. Her way of handling a problem or a situation was so beautiful that impacted me greatly when I went into the chaplaincy and I had to be with people in the hospital and really be a calming force for them. I'd always think of my mom, and how she handled it. And I don't know if it's genetic or if it's just by example, but in this case, it really did work. That she showed by her example how to be,
And I think that as a parent role, that they are showing us by example. They're showing us how we can also be in the world, but they're also reflecting something to us for us. Like with my mom too, being a nurse, nothing fazed her. I couldn't understand it. You're bleeding. It didn't faze her. She would just take care of it.
Right.
She's like, give a shot. Sure. No problem. She was okay with all of that. So, she was really good like that. So I could relate to what you're saying, that she was calm in the midst of a lot of things, but also knowing too, that, I think moms and dads too, they put a lot of effort into maintaining a household, that they could pay the bills, that you're happy, that maybe you can go to camp, that you can take extracurricular activities, that they show an interest in the things that you like, and they take care of you that way. And sometimes yes, sometimes no, people might have an opposite experience. But it also helps to build who you are, if you're looking at the separate self identity.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, we talk about as presence. Our show is all about being and not doing, being the divine in the oneness consciousness, and knowing that our personality, our identity, our role is only the illusion, is the dream. And we, as beings, see that, can witness it. But when we're tired and we're asleep and we don't really know, what we're doing or saying because we're in our pattern mind, right? We're being patterned. We're patterning our parents. We're patterning. We're pretty much on remote control, moving through life. We really we're not conscious of what we're doing, and therefore we make mistakes. And we're not speaking from a place of wisdom. We're really trying to cope with what we're doing, and we're not really focused, and we're not looking at it from a place of the deeper dimension. So we're really here to have this deeper conversation too. I mean, we can say we love being a child, and we did pattern our parents, and now we're adults, and we're patterning the same pattern that our mother gave us to raise our own children. And how successful have we been doing that? For me, I look back on when I patterned a lot of things that my mother did. Was it right or wrong? No, it just was. It was what I knew to be comfortable. Was, something would come up and I think, my mom handled it this way. I guess I can handle it the same way. Did I question it? No, I didn't have any other frame of reference. Right. But if you already know that you're not that, if you already know that you're really not the roles that you play anymore, even a mother, you're not that motherly role anymore. You're really looking at it from a different perspective. You're really looking from a place of wisdom, and you're more conscious of your next response. Whatever that response will be more from a place of authenticity, more from a place of godliness, I guess you could say, right? Because we are one with the divine. So in that sense, we would know that our actions would be a little bit more awake, more conscious, and something that our children can really deeply learn from. And maybe if we're all conscious as parents, these children, our future, would be very bright, right? Have a little brighter future than those who are asleep trying to be parents, not knowing what to do because they're just patterning their old habits.
Yes, and that's true, because we follow in our parents' footsteps sometimes, or we just take the opposite road. So it's just something that inside of us, whatever is building up. But we come here, and someone described it. We come here, we're born, sacred breath. We're born into this world in the story, right? That we are now have this suitcase that we take with us on this train ride. And sometimes we get off the train at certain stops. And what are we doing? What are we creating? Like you're painting, for example, and which you did this wonderful picture in the back here of
the whale
and the dolphins.
The dolphins. Yeah, I did that with my daughter.
Can you see that?
Yep.
Yeah, when we were visiting here. Yeah, in Hawaii. And anyways, and you're welcome back. Please come back again.
Oh, I'll be there.
Awesome. And the one thing, though, to remember is that when we have, and my daughter has 2 sons now, and my son has a new daughter. And the one thing that they say, too, is taking care of yourself, like nurturing yourself, like it's not enough. It's like your downtime isn't really used to do a lot of things, because then you want to rest. It feels like, because otherwise you keep pushing, because like, oh, you have a little bit of downtime. Now you can go ahead and do some work that you needed to get done. But then you create this cycle of exhaustion. And I think that many times, we need to come back and support each other and be a big support in any way that we can.
Well, that's a good point. Yeah, that's a really good point, because I remember, as you know, brought up another memory. I remember being totally exhausted. My daughter, when she was first born, she was nursing every hour and a half. And I has no way could have gone back to work. I had to nurse her, and for a whole year, she was very demanding as a little baby. And what do you do, right? How do you take care of yourself in that moment of you need to rest when they rest, you need to sleep when they sleep, and you have to really put yourself first with that, because if you're depleted, your baby's going to be depleted. It's like that oxygen mask, right, that falls down. You have to take it in first and then give it to your child. But I didn't learn that really fully, because as a mother, we're supposed to not care about ourselves. We're supposed to give 100% to our children, because otherwise we'd be a terrible mother if we took care of it, right? It was that guilt thing going on.
Yeah,
If I took a nap, I mean, or I didn't breastfeed her, you know, if I pumped and gave it over to my husband to give it to her, I just felt like I'm not being a good mother, right? So we do that to ourselves.
And we learn that. We get that from media. We get that from friends or from other family members. And they tell us, oh, you should be doing it this way. Or why don't you do it that way? And you're like, which way am I going to do this? And what's really important, though, is for me, is seeing how my kids how they've been doing in the world. You know, it's just amazing to me. And I get so much back from that, just seeing how they're doing. And so that's the gratitude, especially what my daughter mentioned to me. She goes, the best thing is that seeing how her young kids are just growing and how they're being in the world. And she just loves watching them grow.
And I think that that's where we get our feeling of stillness, is watching our children, our babies, just learning how to walk, learning how to be in the world, right? We just stare at them with this sense of awe, that look at this precious creation that is learning for the first time how to walk, what to do in the world, where we're so taking everything for granted all the time. We're not really fully present, a lot of us. And when we actually can see a baby being fully present, we are just so activated. We're like, wow, that's what presence feels like. Sort of like a dog, too. When the dog is we're petting a dog and the dogs are so present, right? Look in their eyes. It's great. And that reminds us who we are. I mean, they remind us, that's really, because they didn't form their habits yet. They're just pure consciousness. Yeah, and it's just beautiful.
From 0 to 7, they're closest to God, right? Because they're new. Yeah. And if we could just see through their eyes as well, you know, the awe and how inspiring it is. But we have to remember too that they're learning, watching us, watching mothers, watching the parents, and they're learning. They're just downloading all these programs. Like, how were you with that situation? How did you react when this happened or that happened? So they're adjusting and they're learning through things, and then how they react with their friends and how they need to be at home. And maybe they start learning different ways, how they need to respond, or, you know, how to talk to people. So there's a whole bunch of variables that are going on. The one thing to remember, though, is to remember who you truly are, right? To come back to that presence, that awareness, and be the observer at times. So you're not reacting. You don't have that knee-jerk reaction to things. And if you get angry, it's like, follow that 7-second rule. Okay, I'm angry. I realize it. Okay, breathe. Now let's deal with this. You know, because if you're going to deal from anger, you're not going to get the best result.
Very true. And a lot of parents get very frustrated with their children, don't they? You know, they'll take the child out to a grocery store and they'll act up, and then they'll start screaming, and they don't know what to do in that moment. I think they take it very personally, first of all, right? Instead of putting it at a distance and saying, okay, that's the child acting out. It's nothing to do with me. But that child needs to go through that in that moment. And so how can I just allow them to express themselves and calmly handle the situation? Because a lot of parents take what their children do as oh, my child's this way and my child's that way. And it's like an ego boost, right? They're this way, then I feel proud to be their parent. But if they're that way, I don't know them. I don't know them.
Mhm.
So instead of being an example in that we're not playing a role, if we're playing a role, then it becomes very like you got to read it in a book. Oh, this is how a mother is. Oh, okay. But no, a role is not really authentic. You're not being authentic. But when you
Mhm.
truly tap in, like you said, to your I am presence, then you are the light, you are the love, and that energy permeates, and your children are feeling your unconditional love for them and your total acceptance of them in any way they are acting, because it's perfect just the way they are. And I think that if more parents
Yeah.
could allow their child to express themselves just in that moment and be okay with whatever that is, that would be such a gift to the children, because most of the time the parents are going, oh, don't act out, go to your room,
Mhm.
be angry over there, but don't be angry in my presence. What does that tell our children? To stifle
And I
their,
think each generation is
yeah,
handling that differently. Like
yeah,
I could speak about that with my daughter. I've seen her in action that, if the young one gets, angry or frustrated, it's like, well, let's take a look over here or redirect. Or there's a explaining about, well, if you do that, then this is what could happen, or this is why we do this.
yeah,
So she's speaking very calmly, and then it also helps the child to have less of a reaction, and then say, oh, okay, and then things kind of change in that moment. So it's working in that moment of what is,
right.
and that's the way to really take a look at things.
Yeah, and I'd love to engage our guests here that are watching, our wonderful viewers. We have Gary, we have Robert, we have Larry, we have Bob, we have Carol, John. Anyone like to speak about their mother and the example that they had an impact? Okay, great. Let me bring you into the room. Hi, Gary. How are you?
I'm wonderful. Thank you for having me. I love this.
Oh, I'm
Hi,
so
Gary. Welcome.
welcome, welcome. Yeah, share with us, please.
Okay, so my mom, she died at age 96. She was a mother of 8 children, 6 boys and 2 sons.
Wow.
Uh, my dad was like a World War II vet, that whole generation. What do they call it? The greatest generation? I think that's what they call it.
Uh,
So I grew up Roman Catholic. So think of that tradition. In a neighborhood that was as diverse, it could have been the UN. It was awesome.
oh, great.
Um, and so we got to learn to live together and have fun. It was great.
That's very unusual. To live together, it's so diversified, and to have fun. What
Yeah,
a blessing that was.
I'll tell you a funny story about that. So I had a girlfriend. I think I was in 6th grade. She lived right down the block. I was good friends with her brothers, right? It's a big family too. And I remember I told my mother that, I'm going to hang out with, the family over here. And she said, oh, honey, you can't do that. They're Lutherans. I said, Mom, are you nuts?
Oh, wow. Oh, well, you're laughing about it. That's good.
That was civil disobedience when I was 12 years old. It's not happening, Mom. She's a blonde, cute, and she likes me.
Very good for you to know that that's right. Yep. So you learned from what your mom didn't know.
Yes. And, my mother had so much wisdom. It was just, okay. Think of a little lady, Latina, Mexican, right?
Yeah.
She's like 4'10", 115 pounds soaking wet. Raising 6 boys in the hood.
Wow. All right.
I'll tell you what, you didn't mess with mom. She did not mess with mom.
So how did she discipline you guys? And what was the big thing that she had control over you like that?
Oh, you'll love this one. So my dad, okay, let me talk to you about my dad. So my dad was a hardcore, you know, I remember we used to watch television shows, Westerns, right? And you'd have the Mexicans coming in and messing with, you know, the cattle ranchers, you know, on the border. And I remember one day my dad says, I don't like Mexicans. I go, what? You're a Mexican, Dad. He says, no, I'm not. He says, I'm a Tex-Mex. He was born in Texas.
Isn't that interesting? Oh my goodness. Okay. Yeah, how we don't see ourselves, right?
Yeah. So then think of that whole contradiction, right? It's just, you know,
Very much so.
he was a hardworking guy. He was a machinist, worked for a company for 42 years. Think about that. My dad never owned a car. He took 2 buses every day to work. My mom woke him up at 5 a.m, gave him his lunch bag as he's walking out the door,
Wow.
like 20 yards away, waiting for the bus to take him 10 miles away, to get on another bus to take him another 3 miles away, and then get to walk a half a mile from the bus stop to his work. He did that for 42 years.
Wow. That's incredible.
Yeah,
So
we have
what
to honor our parents.
That's
Yeah.
right. All their hard work for what they do for us. Yeah.
Amazing. So that was my pops.
Yeah.
And the only reason he retired, because he thought he had to.
Huh. How old was he when he retired?
At 65, but yeah, he would have worked
Okay.
until he died. And he died at 88, you know, so.
Yeah.
And he was a character, a lot of fun. Oh, how did my mom keep us 6 boys in line?
Right.
She only had to say one thing, because she handled us pretty good by herself, because my dad gave her full authority.
Ooh. Yeah. So what was that one thing?
She would say this when she thought she was losing on a grip. She would say, "You don't want me to tell your dad, do you?"
I knew you were going to say that.
Yeah, I was gonna say you wait until your dad gets home, right?
Yes. Yes.
No,
Oh,
And you knew right away that was it.
She didn't even threaten that. She just asked the question. You don't want me to tell Dad about that, do you?
whoops. Well, thank you so much for being part of the show today.
Thank you for having
And anytime, if you want to talk, have another half hour. You may want to
Yeah,
something else.
great. It's good to share our life stories,
It sure is. We learn a lot from that, don't we?
Yeah,
Thank you so much, Jerry.
Thank you, ladies.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
And Robert, did you want to say something? Yes. All right, Robert. Hey, how are you tonight?
Life is grand. Mother's Day is my biggest holiday of the year.
Oh, I know you loved your mom so much. She was such a lady. Wow.
I'm so lucky, that's for sure. And especially when you realize somebody had a certain journey, being a Lithuanian concentration camp survivor under Stalin and Hitler, and still ended up only being grateful for the people it helped, and would only speak to the good things, which and touch hundreds of lives. To have a mom like that teach you how to love, I just feel so fortunate.
Mm. And you're a loving person, so she definitely showed you how to love.
Well, thanks. Yeah, the whole structure of your stability as a human being, when you have a loving mother that gives, like you were talking about, the unconditional love and teaches you how to be in the world and prepares you for life, but doesn't hand on the pain and the bitterness of their own journey, only brings you the gold. So I'm just, and when she brought my sister home, I mentioned this on your other show, I believe, I was 7 years older than her, and she reached her out to me and gave my first lesson in life of how you're going to treat women, how you're going to protect your sister. And that set the tone, and I'm still in training.
I think you've learned a lesson.
And I say that the best is yet to come. So Robert, what did you feel was the best benefit that you learned from your mom?
Well, first of all, we moved her from Chicago, where we were raised, the inner city South Side, to my neighborhood in Whitewater, Wisconsin, on the same block as my girlfriends. I'm sorry, my daughters. And so we had 4 daughters who would be able to walk down the block, not cross the street, and be with her. And now those 4 daughters are thriving. So my mother's spirit lives on through my daughters and beyond. And so she's still with me. I always feel connected. But her teaching me how to be love in the world, there isn't a greater gift.
No, that's right.
And
Beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Thanks, Robert. Appreciate. Yeah, Bob, do you have anything you want to add to that? Did you want to speak? Can I bring you on?
Yeah,
Hi,
go ahead.
Bob.
Hi, how are you?
Great. How are you? Welcome.
Super. Yeah,
Welcome.
welcome. Well, I didn't plan on saying anything, but the thoughts that came to mind, Lynda, I met you briefly one time, and I noticed your high energy and frequency, divinity maybe, but obviously you're an energetic personality, likes to be out in public. My mom, was just, like you, she grew up in a different era. So back in the 80s, she started a modeling agency downtown, and she was putting people in movies as extras, and she had a radio show. So she showed me that anything can happen. The sky's the limit, and she's a big thinker. She's writing a book. So like you, she has, women are just coming to age now. When you have a historical perspective, you realize that before the 70s, women weren't equals, and they weren't really in the workplace, didn't have the same power, rights, and availability. So you're still, everything changed a lot in the last 40 years, but you're well aware of that. So my mom's in a general like you are.
Oh, thank you for sharing that. And is she still with us physically?
Yeah, she is.
How old
She
is
is. She's what is she, 79? And she's writing a book. She wants to get her movie published about her life. So she's contacting producers right now in Hollywood because she knows a few, because she knew them from back in the day. And so she's still thinking big and dreaming big. She'd probably like to be doing what you're doing, but she's more in the Hollywood communication bend than even though she sees ghosts and she believes she's very psychic, she's not like living it like you are, to that extent.
Well, it sounds like a powerful woman, and I'd love to read her book when it.
Yeah, right. Or hopefully a movie comes out or something. So
yeah. But
and this is how the divine mother,
yeah,
divineness expresses itself, each one in its own unique way. And it's so beautiful, Bob, how your mom is moving through this very gracefully. It feels as though she's making a really nice impression, not only for the people around her, like even for you as a role model, but that she's doing this too because she feels like something is coming, and it's coming from her heart, being so heartfelt that now she's sharing that with the world. And so that is so beautiful.
Yeah, she grows big ideas, which gives you the availability to dream for the stars. But one thing I didn't mention is in this world, what I've noticed is there seems like an extreme case of over judgment. And it seems like people are being judged like 10 times more than ever happened in history. And sometimes it feels like when a whole world is judging people, my mom always is loving me and always my supporter. And that's what moms are for, and that's what they do. And I give her so much credit for always being there and loving me in spite of, and then it makes it easier to be in a world where condescension and judgment is so rife.
And we know that when people judge, it's really their own insecurity.
It is. And unfortunately, there was a time when we could just say, hey, that's their problem. But today's environment, people judging sometimes it impinges on you in many ways, in unfortunate ways. The environment is no longer where you can just say, when people judge me, it's their problem. Sometimes there's capabilities that really impend on your life in certain ways.
Well, we're going to talk about that. You bring up a very important
Mhm.
conversation around that because we'll talk about that a little bit. Yeah, thank
Yeah.
you for bringing that up. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much for joining, Bob.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Carol,
Thank
do you have
you.
something you want to say as well? Carol? Yeah, let me bring you on.
Yeah.
Hi, how are you,
Hi.
Carol? Nice to see you.
Hi,
Yeah.
Carol.
Hi. I just wanted to honor my mom by just giving her a little um, description. She died in 2013, so
Okay.
it'll be 10 years this year. She was a really traditional mom. She was her ancestry was steeped in Catholicism. She had lots of priests and nuns in the family, so very traditional and religious growing up. And my favorite thing that I think about when I think about her is I was able to care for her in the last few years of her life. And when you started talking about the divinity, divine feminine, it was the first time I went through A Course in Miracles, and at first I was like, oh, I don't think she's gonna go for this, but eventually I started reading it with her, and it just became this really sacred time. And I went through a good portion of it was the workbook mostly that we were doing. And one morning I picked up that book and I went, this is not for her. And she died that night. And there were just a lot of synchronicities around that too. But we both really enjoyed that.
Wow. Isn't that interesting? You said that at that moment, you said it's not for her. And
Yeah.
how did that feel energetically to you?
Well, I just realized that she had already turned the corner. No, and I hadn't. I was still needing to hear, to read, to process, and she'd already gotten there.
Wow. Very cool. So she was a very conscious lady, it sounds like.
Well, I thought it was really commendable that she was so religious, so Catholic, and yet A Course in Miracles she was on board. She loved learning.
Beautiful. Thank you for
That's
that.
wonderful. That she was open and had that open heart of possibilities,
Yeah.
and that she still was listening to you. She was still deeply connected, and you felt that closeness. And it didn't matter when it was this year or that year, any year, but it feels as though that you had a connectedness with your mom.
And do you still feel her presence at all? Do you still feel her presence?
Oh, yes. Yes.
Wonderful. Wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
It's
happy
beautiful.
Mother's Day to you.
Thank you.
On Sunday. Thank you for joining us
Yes.
today. Yes.
Thank you, Carol. Nice to see you.
So,
and it also,
go ahead.
I wanted to mention too, some mention like a Mother Teresa type of person, and Mother Teresa was a very loving person. And there's a story I just want to share, a very quick story, that Mother Teresa was brought to this, a place for young children that were orphaned, an orphanage. And, they didn't know what to do with these kids. And she actually came to this orphanage, probably not even knowing exactly what to do about it. But what she did was, in the crowd of people, because people came to see her, is she just hugged one of the children. And then someone in the audience there said, I'll adopt that one. And then she hugged another child, and someone else said, I'll adopt this one. And it went on and on and on. And actually, all the children at that time, they all became adopted just
Wow.
because of the love that Mother Teresa has. And people can sense that, they could feel it. And you just have a knowing with the capital K, a knowingness about it, that there's nothing else but love, that love is all there is in the present moment. And people respond to that love because everyone deep down, because we're all connected that way, we all come from that stable, balanced part of us that already knows who we truly are, that awakened and self-realized. But then what we do is we're ending up masquerading. We adopt our patterns and our habits, and we put conditions on things. And then what we end up trying to do, which we can just do or not, is just to let go and surrender and not have the judgments and let that go. Because once we do that, then we are left with a strong, stable, joyful, a natural joy that just immerses, comes out, just emanates from your heart center.
That was beautifully said. Thank you. That was great. And I wanted to bring up what Bob had said about judgment, about people being judged. It's like you said, in this world of duality, there's so many opinions, as we've seen, especially through this time of COVID, and it seems to be even more chaotic than it ever was in the world. And people with different opinions and ego minds that are trying to push their opinion onto you. And if you're this way, then you're not your friend anymore, because how can you not be vaccinated? And so many different ways of approaching life these days. So, but if we are awake and aware that we're supposed to learn from all of this, it's supposed to teach us to wake up. It's teaching us to go inside, to look inside and know our authentic self, know that we are consciousness and that we are witnessing this play, but we're not taking it personally. We're not being personal about any of it, because that's not who we really authentically are. And we're not longer identified, and we don't really care. If everybody can say whatever they're going to say, it does not affect you anymore. I mean, when you wake up, you know that you're not triggered anymore by anybody's judgment or viewpoint. It becomes pretty funny in a way. Yeah. How many opinions are out there.
Right. And don't be lured in by the drama. Exactly. Don't be caught up and don't get hooked into it. Because a lot of people will want to get you involved and get you to believe what they believe. And and then it starts a kind of like a cycle that, like, oh, well, now I got to talk to this friend about it. Or, but if you just go within yourself, your own heart-centeredness, because it's an inside job, right? You're going within, like you mentioned, which was beautifully said, and just understanding who you truly are and just allowing it, just let it unfold in a way that if you just sit with something, like you're debating about what to do about something, just kind of sit with it and just see what comes up. Because if you can come from a place of stability, of balance, that's when the possibilities start to come forward. And remember, you're moving forward to something. We're not looking at the past and what happened back when, but we can look from here, this stabilized point, and now look forward. So we're not carrying all the garbage with us, or the chips on our shoulders, or the resentment, or the blame, or the shame. We let go of all of that so that we could truly be who we already are, which is awakened.
Yes, beautifully said. And like you said, we're in the moment, because this is the only moment we have. There's nothing other than this. The memories of the past are the past. We don't have a future. Go find a future. You won't find it. This is it. This is the only moment. And if you're not happy with it, if you're not happy with this moment, you won't be happy with the next moment. And if you're being distracted in this moment, most likely you will be distracted in the next moment. So how can you fully be here? You can't, right? So make good feel, I mean, embrace the moment, enjoy everything about it, no matter what it is,
Mhm.
and allow it to be without any hesitation about it or remorse about it. And I think that the problem with most of people today is they don't like what they have in the moment. There's always got to be something better or bigger or more exciting, or, maybe if I go over there, I'll be happy. Or maybe if I eat less, I'll be happy. Maybe eat more, I'll be happy. Who knows? It's crazy.
Yeah, it's the expectations too. Like you think that it should be a certain way, or I should have raised my kids a certain way, or well, look what came out of that. That there's always something to look at to say, what was the gift in that? Rather than look at something so negative. And then we finally realize that, oh, what was right and wrong, and we go back and forth. But really, in the end, it doesn't really matter so much. And I want to say that clearly, that we don't want to label everything. Well, that was right, that was wrong. And how many opinions can you get about that? Right? So it's just that you
Especially
just
in your own
release
head, right? In your own head, you're making the comments. That's where the commentary is happening. And as
Right.
soon as you witness your commentary, you'll go, that's just my ego mind playing again, the monkey mind. I don't have to look at it. I don't even have to listen to it. I don't have to pay attention to it. That's why you're the witness to it. Whatever
Right.
it's
And the
saying,
egoic mind,
it doesn't matter.
exactly. And
Yeah.
the egoic mind just wants to keep telling you, well, if you did it this way, or I don't like how you do that, or that wasn't good enough, and the egoic mind is always in judgment. So that's how you know that you're listening to the egoic mind. And you could just say that, not now. No, you don't have to agree with it. You can say, well, thank you, but no thanks. And you want to declutter all of that, because that's all just, chatter, monkey chatter. And when we let go of that self-negative talk, that monkey chatter, then you start listening deep within, because you just want to listen.
Right.
And then that something else comes forward.
Right. Because the stillness is where the divine is, because God is in the stillness, in the silence. Right. And
Yes.
when we are still and present, somehow there's no duality there, because we're one with what is. And that presence is coming through us, and mostly in a loving, kind, peaceful, content. That's what we are. That's what and then that perfume just sort of radiates from us, and hopefully people come in our presence that recognize their presence in that moment, and then feel their sense of love and compassion. And that's how I think we change the world a little bit, one person at a time. If we become that example, like they say, you can be the change you want to see in the world, right? That's what you do.
Right. And you're it. You're the only one. Because if we're talking about oneness consciousness, that what happens is then you are at the center of your own universe. You're it. And everyone else outside of you is either just a role or reflecting something back to you about yourself. Right. And if you're speaking about another person, who are you really speaking about? It's yourself. So don't take anything what everyone else says personally, because that's also one of the actually, it's one of the 4 agreements.
Right.
Ruiz. Don Luis Lewis. Yeah.
Ruiz, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yes. So, if we look at things like that, and, also help the children coming into the world today, that they are so gifted that they may not come in with the karma that we had. And the karma is always moving around and being present, like cause and effect. You do this, then this. But what happens is when the children are just more open and freer to express themselves, and not, like someone else mentioned earlier, it was hard for women 40 years ago. It was a very tough time. And even in today's times, things are still happening for women in a very good way, though. And we just need to be able to help our children to freely express themselves and not feel intimidated or hurtful, or just help them to have freedom and yet be very helpful, be of service to others, as they say, even though there's no others, but to be of service. And that also helps them to grow.
Yeah, and to be the I am presence within ourselves, yeah, so that they can see it within us. Oh, wow, Mom, thank you for, your love, your light that I feel. My children now, are they're in their 30s, and they're really understanding this more and more. Now, as a mother who was unconscious decades ago, I'm glad I didn't leave too many scars. I do know that I'm embarrassed to say this, but I really want to bring it up because I think it's hysterical. When I was unconscious one time, I went, I went to pick up my daughter because I was running, and I realized I had to pick up my daughter at school and take her somewhere else. And I had my other oldest daughter in the front seat of the car, and I hear her, open the back door. I hear the door. And then, okay, great, let's go. Off I go. And all of a sudden, I get to the destination. I get a phone call. Your daughter is still at the school. I go, no, wait, no, I heard the door open. No, she didn't get in the car. My oldest daughter in the front seat kept talking to me and distracting me. And I did not notice she was not in the back seat. Now, that to me is the most unconscious thing I could have ever done in my life. Now, how did I learn from that?
Yeah.
Well, I learned that I shouldn't be in such a hurry. Number one, I should look and make sure she's in the back seat. Number two, so many lessons to be learned in that kind of, and then to feel like, and then my daughter, of course, the repercussions were years later. She was still traumatized by the fact that she didn't get it. She still talks about it to this day, and she's 32 years old. So, we have this impact on our children. So it really behooves you to not be in a hurry, to be more mindful of what you're doing and how you're impacting your children's lives. Okay, that was just a good example of how not to be, not how an unconscious mother can be, and that's how I used to be. So I'm very happy that I did wake up for many reasons, not just for that, but for many reasons, mostly because I know who I am now, and that makes a huge difference in the way I operate in the world and how I can influence the world and how I can help others. And I think that's, as parents, that's what we need to do is wake our children up to know the fullness and wonder and magnificence that they are, and that they are all, God is within them and leading them in their truth.
And we all are that. We're all God's children, right? And we're all of that. And yeah, there is forgiveness. Okay.
Yes, I forgave myself
for all these crazy things, right? That could have happened or did happen. And, and processing those emotions, because otherwise we get attached to those stories, or we get attached to the emotions, so that there's something there that still needs to be let go, released. Because if she's still talking about the story, she could say, well, in the story, Mom, this happened.
Oh, yeah.
Or
well,
she could be
we're going to talk about it too.
You abandoned me at the school, or, she could have, and then she could have other similar situations happen to her as she gets older, because she's still attached with that emotion. So then that attracts more of the same, but hopefully not. Yeah,
that could happen. Absolutely. But I think I was just being funny, but she can bring it up once in a while to me, and we would laugh at it. Yeah. So, but good. It is good. Yeah, no, we could hold on to all those and beat ourselves up for it. You're right. And we can continue to play that out and be the victim and be a bad mother, label ourselves as a bad mother. And I think some mothers are feel very insecure about being a mother. Their parents were very insecure. Their mother was insecure. They become insecure. They raise insecure children. So we have to really be mindful of how, going forward, are we repeating the patterns of our parents? And if we are, how can we make a choice in that moment not to be that?
And making a choice is so important. It's like making it another choice. And that would open it up more possibilities. Because if we're just tunnel visioned and thinking it's got to be a certain way, then that's where we get stuck. That's where we get trapped and stuck in those emotions. The biggest thing I do want to bring out, though, too, is that something bigger than ourselves, even, and bigger than that, is we're being guided every moment, in some way. And if we're listening and tuning into that divine mother, then that's that consciousness, that's how we can be in the world in that sense. Also, I want to bring up about Mother Nature and Mother Earth, because those two things, that they rule, right? Mother Nature, like you have, wants to wake you up, then there'll be lightning or thunder, or, there's a rainstorm coming, or there's a tsunami or earthquake or fires. And, these things happen in the world, but we have to allow that and not try to change everything so drastically. For example, when the waters, people weren't abusing the water systems, all of a sudden the fish started to come in. Things started to grow again, because we weren't manipulating that. We weren't, and also manipulating in a sense of people, how do we relate with that? So I just wanted to bring up those points as well.
That's really good. What comes to mind is a fire. When people think of a forest fire as being bad, actually, in forest fires, it allows for new growth and expansion.
Absolutely.
And so even in the worst case scenarios, there's always a benefit that happens from it. No matter what it is, something always good comes from it, and we just have to find it.
Right. Yes. Yeah. Find it. Like find the gift. What is the gift in that? In every moment. And we're born here. Everyone comes here and to serve a purpose in the story, that we're here to, have that first sacred breath. Without the mother, we wouldn't be here, right? We wouldn't have these experiences. And then there's the yin and the yang. It's like the balance, the light and the dark. And you need both. And it's also nurturing through that, but knowing that there's no difference, that there's no separation, that the separation never occurred.
Right.
And then that's how we can have love and be in that space of true love.
That's beautiful. And when you think about it, you have a child out of love. There's two people together creating this being from love. And in God created us. So the God in the story, of course, we say that there's really nobody created, and we really weren't born, and we're not really dying, right? But in the story, yes, that happens. But we're beyond that. But in the story, we all created out of love. We all are love. And from a deeper place of dimension, we all continue to permeate this love and it's really infinite. And there's no expiration date on it. So
our true self is eternal, right? Yeah. There is no expiration. You were never born, you never die, because you're eternal.
Soul is eternal.
So how could that have been?
Exactly. And love is really it. I mean, if we all just know that the love that a mother gives is really the essence of who we all are beyond the role. And so if we can all just be love and loving, a loving presence, that is enough. And that's enough. That's everything, right? And just to be that would be sharing of your love with others. And Mother's Day coming up on Sunday, let us all be that. Just all be present for our loved ones and share that love and really communicate that strongly and say, that's what it's all about.
So, yeah, that's beautiful. Well said.
So I'm grateful for you to be with me from Hawaii, always. Thank you.
Great to be here. Thank you.
Wonderful, wonderful participants. Thank you, Bob and Jerry and Robert and Carol. And thank you all for being here. And next week on Moment to Moment, we'll see you at Tuesday at 7 p.m. Central. Please tune in to YouTube. We're on YouTube. We're on StreamYard. We're on Podbeam. We're everywhere. Have a wonderful Mother's Day. God bless you all.
Yeah. Happy Mother's Day, everyone. Blessings.
The truth is here and now on WLTK-DB Talk Radio at WLTK-DB.com.
Thank you.